Story 1. The stories you are about to hear have all been discovered on various social media platforms. So lock your door, check nobody is behind you, and check under your bed. Ready? Then let's begin. This story happened to Reddit user Patented Space Hoax parents when they were dating in their teenage years. They lived on the same street as a poor, unfortunate mother and father who, one day, went upstairs to check on their daughter as they had not heard a peep from her for a while after she had gone to bed, complaining of a severe headache. She was found dead in her bed. The parents were understandably distraught. After the funeral, the grieving parents felt they needed to get away to process things somehow. They asked their local neighbor if he would check on the animals whilst they were away. He brought his daughter and her boyfriend around to keep him company. The father and his daughter's boyfriend went to check on the animals, whilst the daughter, who was a keen piano player, went downstairs to play on the piano that was in the house. She walked into the room and gazed upon the beautiful grand piano. She sat down and gently began to play. She felt something brush past her leg. It felt like a cat. Surely it must be the owners of the house. After all, owned a cat. She began to play again. Once more she felt the brush of something move against her leg. She quickly looked underneath the piano. Nothing. There was nothing there. So once again, she began to play. She felt a pair of cold hands tighten around her ankles. She ran upstairs, screaming for her dad and her boyfriend. They asked what had happened. She shook as she told them about the pair of cold hands grasping at her ankles. Her father's face went white. He told her that the neighbors whose daughter had died recently in that house would play the piano, and the young girl would often grab her father's ankles as he played, playfully pressing his feet upon the pedals. Story 2. This tale is by Max, found on Quora. There are, it seems, 3 rules you have to follow when playing with a Ouija board. 1. Don't play in a graveyard. 2. Don't play alone. And 3. Always say goodbye. So one day Max's mother came home with a Ouija board. It was from a thrift store, she said. She thought Max would like to use it. She's obviously not seen any horror movies. Max told her she had to be there because he wouldn't play it alone. She said it was nonsense, but indulged Max regardless. That wind-howling night, Max and his mother sat in the kitchen. He dimmed the lights. It wasn't long before Max was in contact with a spirit. The spirit's name was Carter. After a few breezy questions, Max asked him how it felt to die. The spirit said, cold and dark and lonely. Max noticed how cold the room had gotten. He could see his breath. His mother had gone upstairs, probably getting laundry. Max then asked Carter if he would harm Max if given the chance. Carter didn't reply. Max felt uneasy. He felt like Carter the spirit was still there. He waited a moment, but still no reply. Max pushed the board away. He didn't want to be in that room alone, so he went to check up on his mother. Max asked himself why he didn't say goodbye to the spirit. Max became frightened. What if Carter would hurt his mother, or even do something much worse? Max went upstairs. His mother appeared on the landing and began to walk downstairs. She went into the kitchen. Although Max felt unease, knowing his mother was in the next room gave him some comfort. He decided to continue the game. He noticed as he walked back to the Ouija board, it had moved, and it said, yes, considering Max had asked the spirit just moments before if it would hurt him. That was not good. A shiver went down his spine. He quickly put the board away in a hurry, but once again he forgot to say goodbye. At first Max did not notice anything strange. Then he began to hear the whispers. Sometimes when he would hear the whispers, it would make him less scared if he blamed it on his mother, so he often did. But one afternoon she didn't come home, and there were the whispers again. Alone in the house, all he could hear was the whispering. After a while he stopped hearing them, but then strange, creepy things started happening. Plates would move on the counter, glasses would fall over, utensils would move of their own accord. Doors would open by themselves, although there would be nobody there. It felt like there was somebody watching. Sometimes Max would be in his bedroom. He would hear the door creak open. He'd look up and there would be nobody there. He would often hear the floor creaking when there was no one there, yet he could clearly hear somebody walking. Max tried in vain to convince his mother that there were ghosts, that something had crossed over from the other side. She told him to stop being silly and said the house was really old, and that's why he may be hearing and seeing all these things. She said he shouldn't believe such things. Eventually they moved out because a door flew out of its frame. Max's mother said,
"This house is ancient, and we need a young, stable house."
But he knew she was scared too. She was just trying to convince Max, and no doubt herself, that everything was all right. But deep down, they both knew the truth. After moving, Max hated Ouija boards, but curiosity sometimes gets the better of him. And when he's curious about the other side, he will dabble with a Ouija board. But he never forgets to say goodbye. Story 3. This next eerie tale was relayed by Reddit user Summon Cat. A few years back they had a coworker who had a son, who was at the time 4 years old. The little boy would play about with toys, with pens and paper. He was your average 4-year-old boy, but he also played with somebody who was not really there. Or were they? The boy would often speak to a little girl nobody else could see or hear. The little boy said it was his sister. He truly acted like she was there. He would keep candy aside for his imaginary sister. He would also save a spot for her on the table and would not start eating until she was sat there. The little boy would ask his mom to leave a towel for his imaginary sister in the bathroom. His mother, Summon Cat's co-worker, seemed awkward about it, not really saying anything to him. But he could see on her face she was unsettled by her son's behavior. On the surface, it all seemed perfectly innocent. She confessed that her son was actually a twin at one point. The son did not know this. During pregnancy, the mother found out she was going to have twins. She sadly lost an embryo very early in the pregnancy. She never ever said anything to her son, as she did not want to upset him. She found it incredibly strange and eerie that her son had this imaginary friend. It wasn't so much that he had an imaginary friend, but more so that as soon as he started to talk, he had an imaginary sister. Was this his twin in spirit form, forming an unbreakable bond with her brother?
I'm here. Behind you, look. I am right behind you.
Story 4. This story is from Reddit user Kermando4. One dark night when he was just 10 years old, he was woken up by the sound of the bedroom door slowly creaking open. Then he felt someone sit on his bed. He felt someone brush his leg. The bed began to sink under the person's weight. He wasn't alarmed, as he thought. It must just be Mom. He opened his eyes. It took a moment for him to adjust his eyes. To his horror, he found it wasn't his mom. He saw a boy sat at the end of his bed. He had black soulless eyes, empty sockets where his eyes should have been. The eyeless boy sat there for a moment, then held out his hand. In its hand lay a little box. Kermando was shocked. He reached out to grab the box from the eyeless boy. The eyeless boy snatched its hand back. Once more, Kermando reached out and said, "Give it to me." The eyeless boy faced him and did not move. Then Kermendo blinked, and just like that, the eyeless boy was gone. The imprint where the eyeless boy had been sat on the bed was still there. Just 5 years later, Kermendo's girlfriend came over to do some homework. She finished and decided she could do with a good nap before her parents would arrive to pick her up. She lay there, napping. When her parents arrived, he tried waking her up. She opened her eyes and stared right through him. She looked up into a corner where the wall met the ceiling. She pointed to the corner, then just dropped back on the bed and went back to sleep. He shook her again. She awoke and this time seemed aware of what she was doing. He explained what she'd done. She was shaking and began to tell her boyfriend what she saw.
Up on the wall, I saw a little boy with no eyes. He was there in a Spider-Man pose, staring at me.
Kermendo freaked out and told her his story about the same eyeless kid. Another 5 years passed since that unsettling moment. Kermendo and his girlfriend now had a 2-year-old girl. They were living in his parents' house in his old room, where they had seen the boy with no eyes. His daughter would wake up at the same time. Every night, he would hear his daughter talking. This went on for a while. He noticed his daughter would have almost the same conversation. Every night, he asked his daughter whom she was talking to. She replied,
"It's a little boy. He's nice. He's lost and looking for his mommy."
His daughter would continue to have these conversations with the boy with no eyes until they got their own place later that year.
Did you lock your door? Sleep tight.